The Senate will come to order. Mr. Majors, would you please call the roll?
Senators Aguilar, Baumgartner, Carroll, Cook, Crowder, Donovan, Garcia, Grantham, Guzman, Heath, Hill, Hodge, Holbert, Johnston, Jones,
Excused.
Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lumberg, Marble, Martinez-Umenick, Merrifield, Neville, Newell, Roberts, Sheffel, Scott,
Excused.
Sonnenberg, Stedman, Tate, Todd, Ulibarri, Woods. Mr. President.
Here, with 33 present, 0 absent, 2 excused, we have a quorum. Colleagues, I just wanted to remind you that for the next 33 days, we are planning to call the roll. Colleagues and guests, would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Senator Donovan, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President. Colleagues, guests, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the reading of the journal for Friday, April 15, 2016 be dispensed with and the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted and the journal is approved. Committee reports.
April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 40 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 130 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 26 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 117 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 178 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 182 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 174 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 5 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 97 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. February 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 86 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 36 be amended as follows and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 2 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 154 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. April 15, 2016, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following Senate Bill 155 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation, with the recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar.
Senate Services.
Correctly engrossed Senate Memorial 2, correctly re-engrossed Senate Bills 111, 156, 172, 177, correctly revised House Joint Resolution 1013, correctly re-revised House Bills 1156, 1268, 1317, and 1335, correctly enrolled Senate Bills 58, 145.
General orders, second reading of bills. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time I move that the Senate proceed out of order for the purposes of hearing a tribute as presented by Senators Garcia and Crowder.
You have heard the motion. This requires unanimous consent. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will proceed out of order. Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and colleagues, I'd like to, I appreciate the opportunity this morning to just take a few minutes to recognize Southern Colorado and the importance it's played in shaping the state of Colorado's history. And today we have guests from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the Pueblo Fire Department, Pueblo Housing Authority, Pueblo Community College, the Board of Waterworks, the Child Advocacy Center, the Colorado Mental Health Institute, and the Colorado State Fairgrounds, as well as others joining us, and Catholic Charities joining us to recognize the importance of Southern Colorado. I know my great colleague here from the Senator from Alamosa will be joining me shortly to recognize this tribute, but we also want to point out that you received a small token of appreciation from the Pueblo Greater Chamber of Commerce, the chips and salsa, which you have received every year. It also notes that to take note of the legislative barbecue, which is August 26th at the Colorado State Fairgrounds, and we hope that you'll join us there.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, it's always a treat for me to talk about Southern Colorado. You know, it's home. You know, I guess I will start out by telling you that 3 of the darkest days in Colorado history in my district. We got Camp Omachi, which is a Japanese internment camp, you know, during World War II, which the Ralph Carr building is built for or as a result of that. And it was a very impressive part of our history. We got the Ludlow Massacre, which happened right after the turn of the century, which builds additional character for Southern Colorado. And then we have the Sand Creek Massacre, you know, and those 3 entities, which I do consider the dark days of our history, what it does is build our, you know, our character in Southern Colorado. You know, I'm a 5th generation Southern Colorado, and it's very common down there. It's not uncommon. And what that does is basically it gives us a chance to visit our history and tends to strengthen our resolve on our future. You know, basically what we have, you know, the valley, we have the San Luis Valley from Wolf Creek to Kansas is where I represent. But in the San Luis Valley, we have the sand dunes, Adams State University. You know, we have other universities and colleges throughout the district. We have Trinidad State Junior College, which is both Alamosa as well as Trinidad. We have Otero Junior College, and we also have Lamar Junior College. We have a multitude of educational, even though the bulk of the area is agricultural. You know, it's just a super area. You know, you know, we should not forget about the skiing over in Wolf Creek Pass. But I'd like to tell you a quick story about one of our small rural towns that gives you an idea what rural Colorado is about. Last year, I was invited to a town called Campbell, which is way on the southeastern corner of the state of Colorado, to give their commencement address at their graduation. And you have to realize Campbell only has 5 graduating seniors. So when I went down there, you know, I thought, well, I'll get prepared for probably 25, 30 people, you know, in this small school. And, you know, when I arrived at the school prior to the commencement address, it's held in the gymnasium, but the gymnasium was floor to floor with folding chairs. When commencement started, not only were the folding chairs completely full, but all of the bleachers. There was an excess of 500 people there. And the entire southeastern Colorado community shows up for these graduations to show support of those graduating seniors. And you just cannot help but be so proud of being from that region. But that's the way the entire region is. You know, it's very, very giving region, but it's a very tight-knit, you know, and that's why we fight the other senator as well as myself, plus all of the the representative. That's why we fight so hard for rural southern Colorado. But we do welcome you all down there with open arms, and we want you to come and visit us. But with that, Mr. President, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I forgot to mention that our good friend, the Pueblo County Coroner, is also here joining us as well today. Mr. President, as my great colleague from the Senator from Alamosa mentioned, it's extremely important to remember the significance and importance of Southern Colorado. Everyone from Evraz, which is the largest producer of rail steel, to the Colorado Mental Health Institute that serves a vital role in rehabilitating those who are inflicted with mental illness, to the home of the Colorado Lottery, to the home of Lake Pueblo, which is one of the top 3 destinations in the state of Colorado. Southern Colorado has a lot of great things to offer, and we pay special tribute today.
One more quick.
Senator Crowder.
I would be amiss if I did not mention the San Luis Valley potatoes and also the Rocky Ford cantaloupes. You know, even though we do enjoy the peaches of the western slope, we also enjoy our cantaloupe and our potatoes. With that, Mr. President, I'd also make sure that, one second, Leroy, did you talk about the mayor over here? I'd like, also we have the economic development and the mayor from Trinidad who's sitting over here, also Mr. Rico. Thank you. Did you read that?
Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, if you would allow, I would just like to ask those who are present if the Senate can join us in welcoming them here today.
Colleagues, please welcome our special guests today from all over Southern Colorado. With so many listed as recipients of the one certificate, who gets it? Senator Garcia. Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, that is an interesting question that has presented a dilemma for several years now. I think it will remain a mystery.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for the purpose of taking up the consideration of resolutions calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 32?
Senate Joint Resolution 32 by Senator Marble and Representative Buck concerning the designation of the overpass across the United States Interstate Highway 25 at Kector Road in Fort Collins as the Buchanan Liberty Bridge.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate lay over Senate Joint Resolution 32 to April 29th.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Joint Resolution 32 will lay over until April 29th. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 33?
Senate Joint Resolution 33 by Senators Martinez, Domenic, and Gonzalez and Representatives Brown and Janal concerning the designation of August 2016 as Spinal Muscular Atrophy Awareness Month in Colorado.
Senator Martinez-Humenic.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Joint Resolution 16-033 and would ask that it be read at length. It's pretty short.
Whereas spinal muscular atrophy, SMA, is the leading genetic killer of children under the age of 2, and 1 in 50 Americans carries the gene that causes SMA. And whereas SMA is known to cause degeneration in voluntary muscle movement for those who survive the disease. And whereas SMA crosses all racial and ethnic boundaries affecting people of all ages and genders. And whereas increased awareness about SMA will lead to increased public knowledge and support for both disease research and the families affected by this disease, hopefully leading to a cure. And whereas patient groups have named the month of August as National Spinal Muscular Atrophy Awareness Month in order to raise awareness and promote research of this devastating disease. And whereas organizations working to find an effective treatment and cure for SMA and the families dealing with this disease deserve our support. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 70th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the General Assembly, hereby designate the month of August 2016 as Spinal Muscular Atrophy Awareness Month in Colorado. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Sophia's Cure Foundation, the Gwendolyn Strong Foundation, and the Rocky Mountain chapter of Cure SMA.
Senator Kafalis. Colleagues, please be seated.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm happy to be here in support of this resolution, and I just wanted to add a couple of comments that I think are important. First of all, it is good that we can take time to acknowledge things that matter to people in our communities and in our country, and this is a neurological degenerative disease that impacts a lot of children. And a couple of things that I wish to add is that currently the National Institute of Health and the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke selected SMA as the disease closest to treatment of more than 600 neurological disorders. So there is progress being made on this particular disease, which afflicts a lot of children under 2 years old. Secondly, you'll notice that one of the recipients of the resolution is an organization called Sophia's Foundation. And I did a little bit of research and learned that Sophia was born in 2009, February 27th. And when she was born, she was a perfect baby, as the parents indicated. But at about 5 weeks, they started noticing some things that were different. And after a lot of various tests, they determined that she had been diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy. Currently, Sophia is about 6 years old, and she is living her life with the support of family and doctors. But I think it's important that we acknowledge this and we acknowledge families that are going through this. And thank you very much for your attention.
Senator Martinez-Humenick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this actually affects quite a few families here in Colorado. We don't necessarily always know who these children are, but it does affect children. And very oftentimes, not only does this affliction affect them, then they have other things that contribute to their lack of 100% health. So it puts a lot of stress not only on the children themselves, but the families, and it is an expensive disease to try to work with. And not a lot of people are aware of it, so that's why we brought forward this resolution. We are not in session in August, so it's very important for us to recognize August as National Spinal Muscular Atrophy Awareness Month. And we would ask for your favorable approval.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very, very quick here. I overlooked something that I think is important for the public to be aware of in terms of raising awareness. And there is a screening. There is a blood test that couples can get to see if they are carriers for SMA. And not all doctors will automatically perform this simple blood test when a woman becomes pregnant, but indeed it can be requested. So there is a way to screen for this disease, and that's something that the public should be aware of. Thank you, sir.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 33. Are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 33 is adopted. Senator Martinez-Humenick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask that today's roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Is there objection? Seeing none, the morning roll call will be added as co-sponsors. General orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would request that House Bill 1298 be removed from the general order second reading of bills consent calendar, be made part of the general order second reading of bills calendar.
House Bill 1298 will be removed from the general order second reading of bills consent calendar and placed at the end of the general order second reading of bills calendar. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Tate will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Mr. Majors, will you please read the titles to all the bills on the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1278 by Representative Lee and Senator Cook concerning residential drug treatment for persons on probation. Senate Bill 173 by Senator Heath and Representative Becker Kay concerning authorization for golf cars to cross state highways in order to use a local road as authorized by a local jurisdiction. House Bill 1339 by Representatives Buck and Janal and Senator Baumgartner concerning agricultural property foreclosures.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee adopt the bills listed on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1278, Senate Bill 173, and House Bill 1339.
Is there any discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills on the consent calendar are adopted. Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the body to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, will you please read the report?
April 18, 2016, Mr. President, the committee will place the reports that are in consideration of the following test bills being second reading. The makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 173 passed on second reading in order to gross place on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1278 and House Bill 1339 passed on second reading in order to revise to place on the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
You've heard the motion. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Senate Bill 173 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1278, House Bill 1339 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole. Has that ever happened before, by the way? For the consideration of bills.
Why don't we start over? Senator Tate.
Wow.
Earmuffs.
Too much coffee. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
This one for Duke. You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills. Senator Tate will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the quote rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 16169?
Senate Bill 169 by Senators Martinez, Dominic, and Cook, and Representatives Kraft, Hubbard, Landgraf, concerning changes related to the 72-hour emergency mental health procedure.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, they say the 37th time is the charm, and so I remove Senate Bill 169. Again.
To the bill. To the bill, Senator Cook.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have had quite a lengthy discussion on this bill, and it's an important bill. And we all kind of want to help out people that need 72-hour hold and treats, and it's just how we get there that matters. And we were able to work things out with the good senators on both sides, and I think we've come up with a bill that is a win-win-win, win for law enforcement, a win for the hospitals, and a win for the people that need mental health treatment.
Senator Martinez-Jimenez.
And I would just reiterate that a lot of time and effort has gone into this over the weekend as well. So we do have the stakeholders on board with the bill.
There's an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment L037?
Amendment L037 to Senate Bill 169 by Senators Martinez, Dominic, and Cook. Strike the Aguilar-Floor Amendment, Senate Bill 169 L020 as it appeared in the Senate Journal April 13, pages 709 to 710. Amend printed bill, page 8, line 13, after paren 4, insert paren A. Page 8, line 15, strike A and substitute except as provided in paragraph paren B of the subsection 4, and page 8, line
Senator
17.
Martinez-Jimenez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What Amendment 37 does is it replaces the floor amendment L020 that was recorded in the Journal on April 13th from pages 709 to 710.
Senator Martinez-Jimenez, would you like to move the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L037 and ask for favorable approval, colleagues.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I also rise in support of this amendment. I wanted to make that clear since the first thing it does is strike the last amendment. And I want to thank Senator Martinez-Jimenez and Senator Cook and Senator Newell and Senator Lundberg for working on this with me and urge your support.
Is there any more discussion on Amendment L037? Seeing none, the motion before the body is adoption of Amendment L037. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. There's another amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read Amendment L036?
Amendment L036 to Senate Bill 169 by Senators Cook, Martinez, Dominic, Newell, and Lundberg. Amend printed bill, page 4, line 18, strike paren 5, substitute paren.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 36.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As has been expressed earlier, and as we are all well aware, a great deal of discussion occurred on this bill and some of the components. Amendment 36 addresses the issue that I spoke most passionately about and literally against with the initial bill that we were considering, because it still left the time that a hospital would hold somebody in an indeterminate amount of time. Amendment 36 narrows that down to a 36-hour period. I believe this is a good way to both allow for the timely, proper, and legal processing of somebody who has been put on a 72-hour hold, a mental health hold, to be within the hospital framework before they go to a designated facility. So essentially it's this: rather than the hospital, somebody being held in the ER for who knows how long, this says you've got 36 hours to get this sorted out, plus the time required if there's any if there's any medical issue to deal with. You know, somebody comes in with a broken leg, well, we need to get that stabilized first as well. I urge the adoption of Amendment 36 and an aye vote on the bill.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I also want to encourage the adoption of 36 because it also includes a component in the amendment that says that on or before September 1st, 2016, the Office of Behavioral Health will convene a stakeholder group to look at the to address the emergency mental health treatment needs throughout Colorado, to give a comprehensive needs analysis, recommendations, and a budget request for emergency mental health services in Colorado. They will be doing this within existing departmental resources. And the reason why we wanted to have this in the bill was that everybody concedes that this is a temporary fix, that this is one of those bills where you plug your nose and vote yes because it is a temporary solution. We need to look at the long-term solution, and in order to do that, it takes all of the parties from across the state to do that. So they will be presenting that at the, hopefully at the SMART Act next year. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on L036? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L036. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. There's another amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read L032?
Amendment L032.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L032 is a reporting piece, so if somebody's taken into a non-designated facility or into law enforcement, they need to report to the department the names, not the names, but the names of the counties who are taking the people and how long they were in and the total number for the year. It's mainly just aggregate information and a summary of their demographics, male, female, who we're holding, because what this does is it gives information so that way we can actually analyze and see what the real problem is in the state.
Thank you, Senator Cook. Could you also move the amendment as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I move L032.
Is there any further discussion on L032? The motion for the body is the adoption of amendment L032. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the sponsors and the periphery of senators that collaborated on this, the mental health providers, the hospital association, the law enforcement folks, and the department to make sure that we were getting just the right fix temporarily. So again, I encourage an aye vote on this, but long term, we really need to look at what our solution is for Colorado, and we need to come up with a better fix than this, honestly. However, temporarily, this is threading the needle. So thank you very much for the sponsors for bringing this forward. Ask for an aye vote.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree this is not an end-all to be-all, but it is the first step. And I know CCJJ is going to be looking at mental health issues and to bring back a report. And I know now the department, because of the reporting data, is also will be doing the same thing. So I also ask for an aye vote.
Senator Martinez-Jimenez.
And colleagues, I just want to say thank you. This bill will allow our law enforcement and our hospitals to be in compliance with the law rather than in violation of the law when they are trying to do the right thing for folks who really need the mental health help. So I urge an aye vote.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting this, but just be aware that this is an ongoing situation, but it does not exactly fix the situation of rural Colorado, and that's what our our goal is to get this fixed through in all parts of the state of Colorado, but I will be a yes vote on this.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 16169? Seeing none, the motion before the body is adoption of Senate Bill 169. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors. Mr. Majors, will you please read Senate Bill 162?
Senate Bill 162 by Senator Tate and Representatives Melton and Sias concerning access by Medicaid recipients to non-enrolled medical providers.
Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee lay over Senate Bill 162 to April 19th.
You've heard the motion to lay the bill over till April 19th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to House Bill 1260?
House Bill 1260 by Representative Fields and Senators Cook and Johnston concerning extending the criminal statute of limitations for sexual assault to 20 years.
Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1260 and move the Judiciary Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee report, we just had one amendment that makes clear that if there are corresponding underlying charges that are part of a sex assault charge, those are considered in this extension under 1260. That's for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm honored to bring you House Bill 1260 this morning with my partner up here. This is a bill about sex assault, folks, and I'm sure you've looked at it, and I'm sure there's a couple of pieces of data that I want to share with you that I'm sure you know, which is the current national data suggests that 1 in 4 women over the course of their life will be sexually assaulted in some way, 1 in 4. You can do the math on just the women we have in this chamber, or each of our daughters, sisters, mothers. That means probably 8 of us, 9 of us will either directly be sexually assaulted or have an immediate loved one who is. That is not so challenging as the course that those women and men face after the instance of that assault, which is once you've been a victim of sex assault, here is the road that you face from there. Because of the pressures and the challenges around reporting it, more than 70% of those sex assaults will never even be reported. 7 out of 10 never be reported. Of those folks who do have the courage to come forward and actually report those sex assaults, only 6% will ever be brought to a trial in a court of law. So prosecutors will look at that data and say, you know what, we're not sure that the evidence is clear enough. Only 6 out of the 100 sex assaults will ever actually come before a judge or a jury. And of those, when all is said and done, only 2% will ever see a conviction. So right now, if you are a woman or man who has faced sexual assault in this state, your chances of ever seeing justice right now are long odds of 2 in 100. Right now, the state makes those odds even longer by saying if your sex assault has happened more than 10 years ago, no matter how clear the evidence, no matter how compelling the testimony, you may not seek justice in courts in the state of Colorado. We know the trauma of sexual assault does not expire after 10 years. Neither should a victim's capacity to seek justice. This bill asks us to extend that statute of limitations to allow the women and men who have the courage to face the long uphill battle of trying to confront their accusers to at least give them the right to tell their story in a court of law, and I'd ask for an aye vote.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently, in Colorado, we have no statute of limitations on civil crimes. This is increasing it for sex assaults to 20 years. Currently, it's murder, homicide, and forgery. Forgery has no statute of limitations on it. Something as violent as a sex assault or a rape should at least be extended to 20 years. Currently, there is no statute of limitations for sex assault on a child. this will extend, again, only for 20 years. You know, excuse me, I forgot what I was going to say. But we're not the only state to do this. There's 29 states currently that have no statute of limitations on sex assaults or rapes. And there's one that currently has a 20-year statute of limitations. You know, with the evidence collection and preservation that we have nowadays, we can keep that evidence for a long time. The Weld County DA came down and testified for a rape that occurred 32 years ago. And they still had the DNA and or the semen samples, and they were able to process it, but they couldn't charge. They wouldn't be able to charge under this bill either because it's not a lifetime statute of limitations removal. It's just adding 10 more years. But if they could have, they would have charged if there was no limit. So the preservation is there. The thing is, too, the DA does not have to charge. If they don't feel they can get a conviction, they won't charge. So they look at the passage of time, the evidence, and what the witness memories are, and they look at those issues, as well in the charging analysis. So the one person, though, who should not get closure is the rapist. The victims of these crimes deserve the closure, but the rapist should not get it. So it's a minor extension of 10 years for up to 20 for rape cases, some of our most violent cases that we see every day in this state. So I ask for an aye vote.
Minority Leader Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of this bill. The many years that I served on the Judiciary Committee, I was honored to work in some of these same areas and very knowledgeable about this bill, and I urge support.
Senator Martinez Jimenez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I urge support on this bill as well. This affects not only females, but also males, and it affects children who sometimes are very afraid to come forward. And in enabling this, perhaps we can also save some of those lives who might otherwise lean towards suicide if they don't feel they can talk to somebody about these types of assaults. So it's very important that we pass this bill, and I would urge an aye vote.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say before moving the bill that we heard some of the most compelling and courageous testimony that I've ever heard in a committee room in this building on this bill, and several of the heroic survivors who have championed this bill and have told their stories despite tremendous obstacles and tremendous resistance, and have been real exemplars for, I think, women and men around the country who are with us this morning. We can't introduce them, but we do want to salute them and tell them how grateful we are for their courage and how grateful we are to do a small part of helping make sure this doesn't happen again. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1260. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, will you please read Senate Bill 176?
Senate Bill 176 by Senator Neville and Representative Neville concerning the governor's authority to restrict the distribution of firearms during a state of disaster emergency.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I move Senate Bill 176 and ask for a favorable vote.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, Senate Bill 176 is about a change in the ability of the governor to make a decision to preempt your Second Amendment rights to defend yourself, your family, and your property. I want to go back to testimony that puts this in light, since we were talking about our constituents in southern Colorado. In April 1914, miners employed at Colorado mines owned by billionaire John D. Rockefeller went on strike. The miners worked for the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company and coal mines in areas south of Pueblo. As is typical for strikes, the strikers wanted better pay and better working conditions. In response, the company evicted miners who lived in housing owned by the company. The miners anticipated this and their families moved to tent cities built on leased private property. CFI hired new non-union employees to work at the mines. They also employed armed persons to periodically fire guns at the miners in their tent cities. The state of Colorado also sent armed state employees, part of the organized state militia, to try to end the strike with violence. The state militia fired upon the miners and upon their tent cities. In response, the miners dug holes in the ground. They were trenches in their tent cities for themselves and their families to hide from the gunfire from the military arm of the state of Colorado. Miners encouraged by the union, United Mine Workers of America, also armed themselves, and periodic gunfights between the two sides took place. There was open warfare in Colorado between the state of Colorado and its citizens. Barely 100 years ago, colleagues. Indeed, this wasn't the first time it's happened in Colorado, nor would it be the last. But this 1914 strike brings into the reason that this law is being discussed and what it was first enacted in Colorado. So on April 20th, the lowest point of the conflict, Colorado State Militia set fire to the miners' tents in Ludlow, Colorado. A number of wives and children of the miners died, suffocated by smoke in one of the trenches they were forced into by the gunfire by the state of Colorado. They had done nothing to deserve to die. They had done nothing to deserve to have the military of the state of Colorado attack them. Colleagues, this brings into light that the Second Amendment is not a dead letter. The need for the citizens of the United States and the citizens of Colorado to resist tyrannical government that underlies the protections of the amendment did not end in the 1700s. It did not end when the British Crown was finally expelled from the United States. As recently as 1914 in our history, the state of Colorado declared war on some of its own citizens for exercising their First Amendment right to strike. Innocent persons died at the hand of the state. The state attacked them at the behest of a billionaire from New York. So in response to the strike and to the state-sanctioned violence, May 4th, 1914, Democrat Governor Ammons called an extraordinary session of the legislature. The legislature enacted several provisions. One of them is House Bill 4, found in the 1914 Colorado Session Laws, Chapter 2, page 4, which provides for the ability of the governor to prohibit the transfer, carry, purchase, manufacture, receipt, or transportation of all firearms and ammunition, except upon the permission of the governor. The law includes provisions barring gubernatorial firearms permits to persons who are not U.S. citizens and who have not resided in Colorado for at least 1 year. Colleagues, this tied into the belief that the governor had at that time that this was an outside conspiracy by foreigners. The handout, here's a handout I have for you. I didn't put it on here because I don't want to go too long on this. But at that same session, the legislature also enacted Senate Bill 2, authorizing the governor to regulate alcohol sales and distribution in time of civil disorder. The power also continues into current law. Colleagues, this inaction was a clear violation of our right to keep and bear arms as found in the Colorado and federal constitutions. Nonetheless, our colleagues in the 1914 legislature, acting at the behest, and I guess history does repeat itself, of yet another New York billionaire, enacted the provision. It's persisted in Colorado law since and is a subject of discussion today. So if we look at the current law in the intervening years since 1914, organized labor has been able to secure an exception to having their activities be the basis for a dictatorial firearms ban. CRS section 2233.5 shall not be construed to interfere with the course or conduct of a labor dispute, except that actions otherwise authorized, and it goes on. On the other hand, unlike Section 3 of House Bill 4, there is no longer any acknowledgement that the governor's dictatorial power is even constrained by Article 2, Section 13 of the Colorado Constitution. Colleagues, this section is a leftover of a very ugly piece of Colorado history, when Colorado government declared war on its own residents. However, it draws into context what the Second Amendment is for and its purpose: to protect citizens from tyranny. That was the sole and entire purpose of this enactment when it happened, was the ability for government to suspend the right to keep and bear arms when it declares war on its own citizens. Now, many other people may support the governor's ability to restrict firearms for other reasons, but I think it's important to understand why and how it originated and what its purpose could possibly be used for in the future. Colleagues, I urge an aye vote on Senate Bill 176.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I appreciate my colleagues' support of organized labor, as I'm a very passionate supporter of the same. However, I do want to point out that current law doesn't allow the governor to order the disarmament of citizens nor to order the confiscation of firearms, and that in the Ludlow massacre, the strikers were never disarmed. The guns were stockpiled throughout the tent colony, but it was a fixation during the fire that really killed the vast majority of those who were killed at that incident. And the proponents of the bill have referred to the confiscation of weapons at people's homes during the Katrina disaster. And under 2420-203, this is strictly forbidden in Colorado. Once again, the governor's powers do not include disarmament or confiscation of firearms. And really, very briefly, I want to refer to the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police, who in their letter say that the proponents of this bill are concerned that during a state of emergency, the governor would needlessly take away guns and limit the sale of firearms. However, there's no evidence that this would be true, since these provisions have never been invoked by a Colorado governor. This provision, then dropping down, this provision of Colorado statute that's currently in effect protects the public good, the safety of our public safety of first responders, and allows for coordinated action to engage in recovery efforts. If, in the case of a disaster, there is a wave of vigilantism, that's it. The last thing law enforcement want is for there to be a proliferation of firearms in a volatile environment. I think those individuals that we put the safety of our citizens' responsibility upon their shoulders have come out very strongly in opposition to this bill, and I would urge you to do the same.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I want you to think about something. There was testimony from people who were concerned about limiting or taking away the governor's ability to restrict firearms. But first of all, I want to talk about what this bill does. In addition to any other powers conferred upon the governor by law, the governor may suspend or limit the sale, dispensing, so that means if somebody needs a firearm, is to borrow a firearm, or transportation. What this bill does is eliminates one word, because under that is alcohol beverages, firearms, explosives, or combustibles. It eliminates the word firearms. In Hurricane Katrina, there was an issue with the transportation of firearms, several issues. First of all, we had people whose homes were being flooded. They were transporting firearms to keep their firearms safe. They were interdicted by authorities in Louisiana, and they were told to give up their firearms because there was no transportation of firearms according to the governor of Louisiana at the time. The governor had ruled. There was also an issue with people protecting and defending themselves in their communities. And those of you that understand what was happening in New Orleans understand the lack of control and the civil disobedience, or I guess the civil lawlessness that was happening in New Orleans. Sometimes it happens even on a good day in New Orleans. We had similar issues in Los Angeles during the riots and also in Baltimore during the riots, where people were expected to defend themselves. Transportation of a firearm could mean someone walking with a conceal and carry weapons permit from point A to their neighbor's home. I'm not here to debate what the governor would or wouldn't do. I'm here to bring this bill because this bill should guarantee our Second Amendment rights to protect and defend our lives, our property. This bill this bill protects those rights. The previous law, as written, allows for the usurpment of those rights. One of the things that comes down to when we take a look at this bill, we heard from one person who testified against the bill that the governor of Colorado would be the person that would know and have information about what is going on the ground and would have the ability to make the best judgment for those communities. I can't follow that logic. In a state of community, a man sitting in Denver, Colorado, no matter what he has connected as far as community services or telephone or other communication, there is no way that that person knows what that family who decides to put their goods into a Winnebago and then go down the highway with their firearms is facing. That person, that armed citizen with their Second Amendment rights, understands the issues and the threats much better than anybody, including those of us in this body. I want to leave you with a quote here. Men by their constitution are naturally divided into two parties. One, those who fear and distrust the people and wish to draw all powers from them into the hands of the higher classes. Or two, those who identify themselves with the people, have confidence in them, cherish and consider them as the most honest and safe, although not the most wise depository of the public interests. In every country, these two parties exist, and in every one where they are free to think, speak, and write, they will declare themselves. Colleagues, we have an opportunity to declare ourselves. And this, of course, was written by a good Democrat, Thomas Jefferson, in a letter to Henry Lee in 1824. Colleagues, I ask for your vote. I vote on 176.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion from before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 176. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to House Bill 16-1048?
House Bill 1048 by Representative Primavera, Senator and Lundberg, concerning modifications to the Business Enterprise Program to be administered by the Department of Labor and Employment under its authority to administer vocational rehabilitation programs.
Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee lay over House Bill 1048 to the end of the general order, second reading of Bill's calendar.
You've heard the motion before the body to lay the bill over to the end of the calendar today. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 183?
Senate Bill 183 by Senator Sheffield and Curran, Representatives Williams and Lawrence, concerning a clarification of the General Assembly's intent to maintain the Public Utilities Commission's authority over basic emergency services while prohibiting the regulation of Internet Protocol-enabled services by defining the term basic emergency service in a manner that is consistent with such an intent.
Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee lay over Senate Bill 183 to April 19th.
The motion before the body is to lay Senate Bill 183 over till April 19th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over till April 19th.
I wish it was.
Mr. Majors, will you please read the title to House Bill 1298?
House Bill 1298 by Representative Melton and Senator Cook concerning changes in permissible vehicle dimensions.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1298.
To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The long-awaited transportation bill out of the feds, known as FAST, not faster, don't get confused with the faster bill, but this was the transportation bill coming out of the feds. And what they did is they extended the height and the weight of motor vehicles. So it goes from 13 feet to 14 feet 6 inches. It increases the length of motor vehicles, tractor trailers, and for like call haulers and et cetera, et cetera. And it also allows CDOT to change the heights on some of the bridges, so the warnings. It increases for trucks that have natural gas 2,000 pounds. So they're allowed to carry 2,000 pounds more, and the reason for that is that the equipment to run a natural gas vehicle weighs more, it's heavier. So if you use natural gas, you get a 2,000 pound variance. And it just codifies, it provides clarification to the motor vehicle carriers, and it pinpoints the heights for bridges. So I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Neville. There's an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, will you please read L001?
Amendment L001, House Bill 1298 by Senator Neville, amend printed bill page 3, strike lines 25 through 27 to substitute vehicle and or any combination of vehicles, and stricken language of the vehicle or combination of vehicles contains an alternative fuel system.
Senator Neville.
Operates on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move amendment L001.
To the amendment.
Colleagues, L001 makes a change in this bill. I support the height and length restriction changes. These are positive. Also I support the gross weight of vehicles and loads changes. However, I cannot support a bill which basically picks winners and losers one more time and says, if a vehicle uses CNG or can use a combination of CNG, they're allowed to have 2,000 more pounds on our streets. No problem. But if you have one of those old vehicles, does the same thing, it's got tires, moves down the highway, causes the same wear and tear on our streets, you are not worthy enough. You are not worthy enough. This amendment, colleagues, simply allows both types of vehicles to be, the restrictions to be raised by 2,000 pounds. Urge an aye vote.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a no vote on this. It would take us out of compliance with the federal statutes. You know, I look at it as a free market issue. If a trucking company wants to put in natural gas because it saves them money, then I don't see the problem with it. They can do that. It's a free market. They should be allowed to use that fuel if they'd like to haul their products. And so I would ask for a no vote on the amendment.
Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We heard this bill in committee, and I'm going to have to side with the good senator out of District 13, Greeley, that this is about free markets and what type of vehicle you want to use, what type of vehicle you prefer to use, and I don't think we're picking winners and losers on this. I just believe it's something that's out there. We do have vehicles with alternative energy source, and always been in support of the vehicles that have the combination of compressed natural gas and gasoline. It just makes more sense to not be in compliance with what the federal regulations say. So I'm going to ask for a no vote on L001 as well.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, consistency is always important. When we rise in favor of a bill that says this is free market, except that the government is putting a standard that allows some people to get an advantage versus other people, I'm not finding that that's consistent. We talk about a lot of things here. We talked about alternative minimum energy mandates. Now, the same logic that says this is free market is the same logic that says alternative minimum energy mandates are free market. Neither are free market, colleagues. Let's address it and at least make it what it is. It's government coming in and interfering with the market system, allowing some people to put more weight on the highway than others. For whatever reason, and it's always something for the greater good. This is a workaround for many people. And I appreciate those motor carriers who wish to get a workaround. I appreciate that. However, I have to rise against in support of this amendment, which allows all motor carriers to get a workaround. Let's treat everybody fairly and equally. Let's not pick winners and losers. And this bill, unfortunately, does pick winners and losers.
Senator Cook to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I again renew my request for a no vote on this. The motor carriers support the bill, business supports the bill, so I would ask for a no vote on the amendment.
Senator Neville to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the good senator from Weld County is correct. Business supports a fix, and I appreciate that. But business doesn't support the true fix to the issue. It's the federal government coming in and mandating winners and losers. So with all respect to the good senator from Weld County, we can agree to disagree on this, but I would urge an aye vote on this amendment if you believe that businesses should be treated equally under the law.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L001? The motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L001. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The noes have it, and the amendment fails. To the bill, Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I once again ask for your support on House Bill 1298 and ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1298? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1298. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title of House Bill 16-1048?
House Bill 1048 by Representative Primavera, Sarah Lundberg, concerning modifications to the
Senator
Business
Lundberg.
Enterprise Program to be administered by the Department of Labor and Employment under its authority to administer vocational rehabilitation programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1048.
To the bill, Senator Lundberg.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1048 is a bill to expand the scope of business enterprise programs out there. These are the programs that are made available to people who are blind and have hard of sight issues, and they are allowed to have things like the cafeteria that was downstairs and manage that type of a program. But the bill is intended to expand that to other areas that they may be able to productively have a business enterprise within the infrastructure of the state government. So we're talking about, within the Colorado State Fair, Department of Natural Resources, Department of Corrections. And the way the bill came out of the House, you have to read the revised part of it because it turned more into a we need to study this and encourage it more than make it so, but half a loaf is better than none. It's a good bill. Please vote yes on House Bill 1048.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We heard this in Business and Labor Technology, and the testimony I thought was overwhelming from particularly the blind community, and I too would urge an aye vote.
Senator Cavalos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also rise in support of House Bill 1048. Fundamentally, this will help to increase employment opportunities for persons who are blind. And the working group that was established through the amendment process when the bill came out of the House, that working group functions this year, provides a report by January 1st of 2017, and then that working group goes away. And they're to make recommendations on best practices and also to look at regulations and things that may get in the way of expanding the business enterprise program and creating more opportunities for folks to get employed. Thank you.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the sponsor for bringing this bill forward and to for us to think about the unemployment rates of both the blind and the deaf and blind who would be affected by this. It is astounding. The deaf and blind, for instance, their unemployment rate is over 94%. That's their unemployment rate. And for the blind, it's over 70%. So we should be doing everything that we can to help people be self-sufficient and to make sure that they're able to overcome any barriers through no fault of their own. So thank you again, the senator from Berthoud, for bringing this forward.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1048? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1048. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
I've got to go to the post office. The Senate will come back to order. Please welcome Senator Scott back to the chamber and add him to the roll. And Senator Jones. I understand it was a challenging travel morning.
You mentioned Scott.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 18, 2016, Mr. President, the committee will basic reports that in consideration of the following tax bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 169 is amended. Senate Bill 176 passed on second reading in order to engross, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1260 is amended. House Bill 1298 and House Bill 1048 passed on second reading in order to revise, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 162 and Senate Bill 183 laid over until April 19, 2016, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? With 35 the motion before the body is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Senate Bill 169 is amended. Senate Bill 176 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1260 as amended. House Bill 1298, House Bill 1048 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 162, Senate Bill 183 laid over until April 19th and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 80?
Senate Bill 80 by Senator Newell and Representatives Wist and Pabon concerning secured marijuana cultivation requirements.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we, well, I can't remember how I do this. Do I move the bill and then I?
Are we concurring?
Yeah.
Are you moving the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 80?
Yeah.
That would be a good motion.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move that we concur on Senate Bill 80.
The actual proper motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 80.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we concur with the House amendments of Senate Bill 80.
Please explain.
Thank you. Members, what we did here, what they did in the bill was to actually make it so that your locked and enclosed space could be your ingress or egress of your home. And that's basically what happened. And I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I had a question for the sponsor regarding Senate Bill 80, and it was regarding the issue of outside grows that would possibly be enclosed with fence or some similar security. And does this require that they actually be physically covered also?
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry, Senator from the other part of Littleton. I did find the answer to that question is yes. It would still be able to have sunlight because you can just lock it on the outside.
Is there further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the concurrence with House amendments to Senate Bill 80. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Senate concurs with House amendments to Senate Bill 80. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of amended and concurred with Senate Bill 80.
The motion before the body is the readoption of Senate Bill 80. Is there further discussion? Are there any no votes? Senator Neville, Senator Stedman, Senator Carroll, Senator Marble, Senator Woods, Senator Lambert, Senator Hill, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Lundberg, Senator Holbert, Senator Scott, Senator Merrifield, Senator Sonnenberg, Mr. Majority Leader, Senator Grantham, with 20 ayes, 15 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 80 is re-adopted. Co-sponsors. Consideration of Governor's Appointments Consent Calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the appointments?
Member of the Colorado Commission on Judicial Discipline, effective July 1st, 2015, for term expiring June 30th, 2019. Sonia Ann Negrete Wynn of Pueblo, Colorado, serves as non-attorney appointed. Members of the Board of Assessment Appeals, for terms expiring July 1st, 2016. Sandra Winterhoff Mercier of Westminster, Colorado, reappointed. Mary Kay Kelly of Silverthorne, Colorado, reappointed. And Luisa Maricel of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Greg A. Neer of Lakewood, Colorado, reappointed. For term expiring July 1, 2019, Diane Marie DeVries of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, reappointed. James R. Mirror of Golden, Colorado, reappointed. Members of the State Board of Great Outdoors Colorado Trust Fund, for term expiring April 15, 2019. Anthony Scott Lewis of Longmont, Colorado, serves as a Democrat from the 2nd Congressional District, appointed. David Joseph Palanchar of Colorado Springs, Colorado, serves as a Republican from the 5th Congressional District, reappointed. J.C. Tyler Jasmine Rock of Golden, Colorado, serves as an unaffiliated from the 7th Congressional District, reappointed. Members of the State Board of Land Commissioners, effective June 30th, 2015, for terms expiring June 30th, 2019. Barbara King Bynum of Montrose, Colorado, serves as a representative of public, primary, or secondary education and as a Democrat appointed. The Honorable Greg Moffitt of Vail, Colorado, serves as a representative of local government and land use planning and as a Republican appointed.
Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate confirm the governor's appointments detailed on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, which includes a member of the Colorado Commission on Judicial Discipline, members of the Board of Assessment Appeals, members of the State Board of the Great Outdoors Colorado Trust Fund, and members of the State Board of Land Commissioners.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion on any of the appointments? Seeing none, are there any no votes on any of the appointments? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Sonia Ann Negrete Wynn is appointed as a member of the Colorado Commission on Judicial Discipline. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Sandra Winterhoff Mercier, Mary Kay Kelly, Ann Louisa Miracle, Greg A. Neer, Diane Marie DeVries, James R. Murrer are appointed as members of the Board of Assessment Appeals. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Anthony Scott Lewis, David Joseph Palanchar, J.C. Tyler Jasmer Rock are appointed as members of the State Board of Great Outdoors Colorado Trust Fund. With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Barbara King Bynum and Honorable Greg Moffitt are appointed as members of the State Board of Land Commissioners. Consideration of governor's appointments. Mr. Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate lay over the consideration of governor's appointments calendar to April 19th.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will lay over the consideration of governor's appointments until April 19th. Message from the governor.
April 15, 2016, Colorado Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to inform you that I have approved and filed with Secretary of State the following acts. Senate Bill 13, concerning statutory changes related to the Office of the Child Protection Ombudsman, approved April 15, 2016 at 3:42 p.m. Senate Bill 125, concerning the governance of credit unions in connection therewith authorizing the appointment of an audit committee in lieu of a supervisor committee and allowing the reasonable compensation of a director for his or her service to the credit union, approved April 15, 2016 at 3:31 p.m. Sincerely, John W. Hickenlooper, Governor.
Signing of bills.
President signed House Bills 1035, 1070, 1141, 1155, 1323, 1327, 1350, and 1352.
Announcements. Senator Newell? You knew this was coming. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, today is the Children's Caucus. It's the last Children's Caucus of the session. We have our sponsors, Noble Energy there, Rocky Mountain Children's Law Center, and it's a free lunch. We are hoping to see many of you there. It is in, I believe it's 356 at noon, and see you there. Thanks. Oh.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the topic is child abuse prevention, because it is Child Abuse Prevention Month. So I hope you all can make it. Thank you.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I think some of you saw the little card on your desk that, because it's small, might have gotten under some other papers, but mark Friday, the 29th of April, as Show Your College Spirit Day, as we're trying to encourage more and more students to attend post-secondary institutions. This is a great chance for us to be models for that. So mark your calendar, get out your college duds, and come prepared to maybe even sing your school song.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, committees will be meeting as scheduled with the exception of House Bill 1302 will not be heard in Senate Business, Labor, and Technology.
Additional announcements. Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we will recess to keep the desk open as bills are coming over for the House. You do not need to return. Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess to 1 p.m. this afternoon.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will stand in recess until 1 p.m.